Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of Area 312. I'm one of your hosts, Kent, along with my co-host
Rex.
and my other co-host,
Mike.
And friends, today we are so blessed. We have most of the members of the band that we all know and love from Fear Not. We have Larry, Gary, Eddie, and Chris. Welcome, guys. It's great to have you.
Welcome.
What's going on, man?
Hola. Thank you so much for blessing us today. And friends, you know and love this band. Blessed us for years with some seminal releases. And thankfully, in latter years, they've come back to bless us again with some more releases. So we're going to get into all of it, and we're just going to roll here. So, guys, if you don't mind, just tell us a little bit about your musical upbringing, what made you gravitate toward your instrument of choice, and who were some of your musical influences?
So for me, growing up, I always remember my dad having a guitar in his hand. So I mean, from as little as I can remember. I would sit and just watch. He'd sit on the side of the bed, and he'd play Johnny Cash and Elvis, and that's what he did. And I would just sit there and watch his fingers, on the guitar. And he'd set it down, and I'd go pick it up, and I'd try to figure, okay, where did he put that finger? And you'd hear clunk, 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 and I just did that for the longest time. And finally, I don't know, I think it may have been a D chord, and I hit it and it rang out. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's it, and then once I did that, then I'd start asking him, hey, Dad, show me this chord, show me this chord. So I started out playing, I hear that train come, and but as I got a little older, I was really loving the 70s, rock, old Aerosmith, like Rocks and Get Your Wings and Toys in the Attic. Man, I lived on those albums. And so that's what really got me into kind of the rock side of things. Man, I fell in love with it, and man, I just started playing the guitar as much as I could.
I think some of those influences show in your guys' music. Of course, you have the modern production and stuff, but some of those gritty, bluesy rock influences are definitely heard in Fear Not, at least to me.
Yeah.
So I was always banging on things, typical drummer guy. And I think it was the first time I went to Disneyland that I can remember, like, being mesmerized. It was the pop-up stage. The guy popped up and he started playing. And basically I told my parents, hey, just leave me here. I didn't care about the rides. I just wanted to watch this guy play. And the whole band, I was mesmerized. And so that I started begging for a drum set at that point. My parents said, well, you have to go and join the school band and take lessons. So I was the only drummer, or actually instrument player, at the school. And so I would get shipped over once a week to the junior high and get this playing band and learn how to read music and learn that stuff. So that was kind of my very beginnings. Then I had a neighbor who played guitar, and he was one of those guys that went in his room one day and came out, and he was Eddie Van Halen. He just instantly played. So he taught me. He was actually playing drums before that. He taught me how to play 2 and 4, and we started jamming to Deep Purple. So that was my first. But I really loved the Beatles growing up, and I had 3 albums. I had Deep Purple, Machine Head, I had Come Taste the Band, and I had Leo Sayer. So I played like the metal stuff, and then I had a pop, but I really like that straight 2/4 simple pop. So that's kind of where I started in my influence. Never really got into any of the drummers. Never went for, I was never like a lick guy. So I was just a, meat and potatoes kind of Bonham style. So that's kind of my influences. Ringo and Bonham would be my most.
I think it's very cool, Gary, that you mentioned as a side note, Come Taste the Band, because I think that's an oft overlooked album from Deep Purple, but I think it's amazing actually. And I know it doesn't get the credit I feel that it deserves, but very cool. Bonus points for Gary for mentioning Come Taste the Band. So, Eddie.
He always gets the bonus points.
Absolutely. So, I grew up, I'd wake up on Sunday mornings and my dad would always have music playing, stuff like the Eagles and, Creedence Clearwater Revival, BTO, all these guys. But really what changed, there were two defining moments. I'm going to reason up. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Like a robot.
Okay, good. Yeah, videos. And I was walking through a department store and picked a copy of Destroyer and just stared at it in awe and realized that's really was going to be life-changing for me when I saw Kids. And as I progressed, I became an athlete because I grew up in a small town and it wasn't cool to be in band, which I regret. I really wish I would have been. And I heard Stryper for the first time, and I knew right then and there that I wanted to be a Christian rock musician. Got the blessing, honor, and privilege of being able to play with those guys and know Robert Sweet, which was iconic for me. And then as my musical career progressed, I really became more into nu metal, more of a Five Finger Death Punch, Kill Switch Engage style vocalist. And I did that for about 10 years and was signed to Warner Brothers for 4 of those years. And, got to play some big stages, play with some big bands. And then, I left music to focus on family. And a couple, 3 years later, Larry shows up and says, "Hey, how would you like to front Fear Not?" And I was honored, and we've never looked back. So
very cool. Was the band with Warner there, Eddie? Was that Even the Dogs?
It was a sub label of Warner. We were actually managed by Brian Head Welch from Korn.
Yes.
It was actually called Driven Music Group, but we were distributed by ADA Warner. And it was good. It got us on some big stages. It got the album out there big, but we never made a living doing it. We actually did better when we broke away from Driven and became an independent. For the last 3 years of Even the Dogs, and it was a good run. But I tell you what, that style of metal, that nu metal, hardcore metal, that's a young man's game. And even though I could still do it well, I was feeling it after every show. And we were doing 100 shows a year and maintaining full-time jobs. And we were doing them all over the country. So I came into Fear Not as one of the the newer touring guys. Chris still tours pretty heavily, but I love this style of music because it doesn't hurt my voice. I can sing, I can get into it, and it's not that metal ever damaged my voice. I had a lot of training, but it was getting to the point to where it was becoming work and not play anymore.
Gotcha.
So Fear Not is not that way. Fear Not is, like I said, it's a blessing, a privilege, and an honor just to be a part of these guys.
Very cool. Well, Chris, Eddie says it's a young man's game, and he says you're still out doing it. So what's your secret, my friend?
Just love of music and just traveling and touring. I work with a couple of different artists. One of them is a country artist. Well, I say country, but it's kind of a hard Southern rock country type thing. And we've been touring and we've done a lot of stuff overseas for the military. And that kind of just really gives you a sense of giving back to the military. All of us are really, excited about being able to do that.
So what was some of your influences, Chris, like growing up, like bands or artists that you loved or listened to? Or
I listened, man, obviously, when I was a kid, my mom used to listen to a lot of country, Patsy Cline, Loretta Lynn, and stuff like that. And then I grew up around the college campus, so I started hearing, like all kind of 70s Southern rock type stuff, or hard rock stuff, and, Southern rock, and just a bunch of different things. My influences it depends on what day it is. I mean, that's how much it changes. Like you guys are talking about, man, Richie Blackmore was a huge influence. Johnny Winter was a huge influence on me. Just so many different genres and so many different things. Jimi Hendrix, Frank Reno, all these just different bands that you can just listen to.
He's a closet bluegrass player too.
Well, I don't know about that. I like Mississippi Delta blues type stuff, so I play a lot of resonator guitar. I do love bluegrass, but I lean more towards like the Mississippi Delta type stuff. But
Chris, do you ever play a cigar box guitar?
hang on a second.
I love Mississippi Delta Blues. There you go, buddy. Yes.
Yeah.
Got a Tennessee license plate on it, and
Nice.
there was a company called Hobo Cigar Box that gifted me that guitar, and it's been on tour with me a bunch, and I get a lot of questions about it.
Very
Oh
cool.
no, you can't pick that guitar up and not at least strum it a couple times. Come on, stop it.
Out of tune. Thanks. Something like
Very
that.
cool.
No picks, no slides here, so that kind of.
Question, Eddie mentioned being influenced toward Christian rock after hearing Striper. To the rest of you guys, did you have some influence that way, that you heard some Christian rock and kind of moved you in that direction?
That's good. I'll tell you, I was a sophomore in high school, I believe. I thought I was 16 years old, and I had not yet met the Lord yet. And but from the time I was young and remember, my mom would always say, one of these days you're going to be playing for Jesus. One of these days I'm praying that you're going to be, whatever you do, you're going to be playing music for Jesus. And I would laugh and laugh, and I just say, Mom, you can't play rock and roll, and you just can't do it. It just doesn't go together. And I was 16 years old. I had met at high school an acquaintance from a younger time where we played Little League together, right? And we hooked up again in high school. And he had long hair, and I'm like, oh, hey, Mike, how you doing? And he would just like hound me because I thought, man, this guy's cool. He's into music, hard rock, whatever. Well, then he starts talking about Jesus, and it just threw me for a loop. And I'm like, what is going on here? And he's like, I want you to come to the church with me tonight. And I was just like, no, I don't think I want to go. And he would tell me all the time. He tried to talk to me about the Lord, and one day he pinned me up against, how people used to fight behind the school gym, maybe behind the school gym. Well, somehow we just hooked up behind the school gym, and he pinned me up against the wall, and he says, I'm going to tell you about Jesus, and you're going to listen. And he was a lot bigger than I was, so my ears were wide open. I said, you go ahead, I'm listening. And he goes, I want you to come to church and I want you to hear this band. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I walk in and I see on the stage, huge drum set, amps everywhere. And I'm just like, what in the world? And so, you know, I got to hear the band play, and that night it just kind of all came together. You know, I actually received Jesus that night. I got to meet the band that night, and my whole world turned upside down. You know, so it was a band called Airborne, and they were just like a local band there. And yeah, that man, it introduced me to Jesus, Christian rock, everything, one fell swoop, man. And I mean, I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do.
Very cool. There's Eddie.
Oh, I'm here. I'm just listening.
Well, you had your high school picture up for a little bit. You went away in your little. It wasn't your high school picture.
No, thank God. I'd have been bald in high school. That'd have been a whole different ball game. Us bald guys got to stick together.
So
how about the rest of you guys? Did you have an introduction to Christian rock like that, or something that influenced you that way?
I guess my story would be, I was in a band playing in Hollywood, probably running into Chris all the time. Larry was in a band doing some Hollywood stuff, but I was in a secular band, playing in Hollywood all the time, being a knucklehead as usual. So I got saved. Actually, it was at a Passion play, and I think it's gonna be like almost 32 years next month. But anyway, so when I accepted the Lord, I did one more show with that band, and then I said, I cannot do this. God just, and I basically went to church 4 nights a week. I started going to a church in California called Calvary Chapel, West Covina, and it was in a storefront. It was Raul Reese. I don't know if you guys ever heard of Raul Reese. And
I took Kung Fu lessons from him, Gary, for a long time.
I believe it. So anyway, I didn't know when I went to that church, I was brought there. I didn't have any clue what church was about at all at that point. And when I walked in, over to the right, we would sit on the left all the time. After about 3 weeks over to the right, I noticed all these long-haired guys. Well, Stryper was there. I didn't know who they were at the time. There was all these other Christian. There's a whole group of Christian bands, like 5 or 6 bands. And so one day I just walked over there and I started talking to them. And I had basically told God, I'm not gonna play drums anymore. I'm just gonna see what you got to, and I'm not gonna be in this band. I don't know anything about worship music. There was drums and worship, but it wasn't like it is now. And anyway, long story short, I met a drummer. In fact, he gave me this drum set right there. He's in the band. He's now in the band Tears for Fears. But anyway, beside that, he was a long-haired drummer guy, and I started talking to him, and he invited me to a show. And I said, yeah, if you need help, I'll help you. So I ended up going there and becoming his roadie that night. And then I started going to all the shows. I actually met another guy, Darren, who was the guitar player for Love Life, which was our very, very first album. And I met him. He was roadieing for the guitar player. And then the bass player, Rod, he was hanging out there too. And then Darren had a bass player friend, Mike Link, who's actually from Mad at the World. And Mike Link and Darren and I started jamming together. We put an ad out, and this guy shows up, Larry Worley. We're like, how in the world did this happen? And the rest is history. But basically, we all, before we played any shows or anything, we all were the road crew for this band called Surrender. And we went all over Hollywood, gigging with them. And finally we got a chance to play, and we started playing clubs, and we never stopped. The funny thing about that story Larry told too is that guy that was the drummer of that band, Airborne, he became the manager for all of the Christian bands in Hollywood. And he literally, he would have us play 3 nights a week. We were playing, every other night, just Hollywood, West Covina, the beach, any club that would have us, we'd go and play it. Any church, any youth group, we played we played at a church one time. We got there and they said, "Oh, you're opening for the Donut Man." You guys ever heard of the Donut Man minister? So he says, "You guys are playing for the Donut Man." So we thought, "Oh, cool!" In this big old church, we're like, "Yeah, great." But they had us bring our sound system. We're like, "What? We don't understand it." We get there and they say, we walk in the church. Where do we set up? They're like, "Oh, up there." So we ended up playing in a youth room upstairs for like 30 kids instead of the 500 people at the Donut Man. And it was awesome because like 15 of those kids got saved that night. So it was like we had our manager, Randy, he was an amazing guy. He always told us, 1 or 1,000, give it your all. So anyway, that's the story there. That's kind of how we got signed too, by doing that same thing.
That's great.
What about you, Chris?
Man, my first taste of Christian music was, I had a cousin, which I love to death, man. He's just a great guy. Came over to my house when I was a kid, and I discovered, like, I think I'd seen like Black Sabbath on TV and just absolutely loved the sound, the hugeness, and the just the veracity of the whole thing. He came over, took a look at that album. He's like, I want to take you to a Christian concert. And he ended up taking me, I think, to go see the Res Band, which I love them. But back in the day, man, I'm just sitting there just going, man, this is power. I dig this, but this has got so much power and so much veracity to it. Funny story, I ended up going out to GIT in Hollywood and just started becoming part of the the music scene out there and stuff. And I remember one day walking into, I think it was like called the Music Plant or something like that. There was a club in North Hollywood, and I walked in, and here's this band that just got yellow and black stripes all over all their stuff, and I'm just like, what the heck, and I was with some other guys from GIT, and they're just, man, what a pack of bumblebees just come through here or something. And I remember you had to go walk backstage to use the bathroom. I remember walking back there, and I heard this conversation between Oz Fox and his manager. His manager's like, man, you guys, at that point, I don't know who the manager was. But
Like Guido.
Huh?
Was it Guido?
No, it wasn't. But the guy was just like, and he might have just been, like a label guy or something. He's just like, you guys, man, I love your sound. I love everything about you, but you need to dial the God thing down. And I'm just like, wait, what? These guys are, I just walked in at the very end, and I was just like fascinated. I'm just like, man, these are Christians, and these guys are playing super heavy rock. And, back in that time.
Yeah,
Sure.
So that there's a light that just came on in my head at that point. I'm just like, okay. This is really cool. And then I started discovering other Christian bands. And man, that was like pretty much the forefront of a lot of stuff that was going on. And it's just, at that point, that's when things really started changing.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Is Eddie ordering from the drive-through?
I had to get cash.
I thought you were taking us to the
Yeah,
McDonald's.
see, what do you guys want from Taco Bell, man?
Oh,
I mean, the fat kids never tripped on the way to the table. Come on.
so guys, just doing my research on Fear Not and Love Life and the whole shooting match. I think Chris, Gary, you mentioned the band Surrender, but I was at one point you guys were called Forever. Is that right?
Yeah.
We were called Justice, Forever. Were there any other ones, Gary?
I can't remember. Reaction?
Yeah, Reaction. Yeah, we just could not. I mean, and we would be these names for like 2 weeks, and we go, no, we don't like it. Let's change it.
So in LA, in Los Angeles in the late 80s, and Gary, you alluded to this. there were some ads that were placed in the paper. And my question is, what were the ads saying regarding looking for band members? How did the ads read? Were they expressly looking for Christians to start up a hard rock and metal band?
Yeah, we were scared back then. We were, you know, I mean, not, I don't ever want to sound like prideful or whatever, but I mean, we were kind of the whole group, not just us in this chat, but the whole group that was doing Hollywood all the time. I mean, we had stickers on our car that said "Turn or Burn." I mean, we weren't out there playing. You know what I mean? It was serious warfare. It was serious, like, you know, it was accountability. It was prayer. It was a lot of cool stuff going on that you know, I don't know if it happens anymore in the new bands and stuff, but we spent a lot of time on our faces. You know, it was just praying, and not just to us as a band, but it became a really tight-knit group of bands. Everybody went to everybody's shows. People were getting saved. People were, you know, it was ministry. That was like all of our lives. We used to, a couple of us used to say God and drums, and then shoot, within a year we were both married. But you know, we would go out, and we'd never be alone. We had, you know, I think we were doing it right back then. And I don't know if that answered your question, but yeah, I'm sure that, I don't remember that. Do you, Larry?
No.
But I'm pretty sure it
I
didn't say we want a rock and roll singer and hopefully he's a Christian. I think we didn't want to waste our time.
Well,
and we literally only had one other person, and that was a friend of Rod's that ever came and auditioned for us, you know, or ever, you know. I mean, Larry came in, it was this God thing, you know. It was like, wow. And you know, we all had big personalities and fought like cats and dogs in the beginning, but you know, we did our thing.
I won.
He still wins. Don't let him fool you.
So let me ask you guys, Gary, you prompted something that made me think. You know, Mike and Rex and I mean, we're all in our 50s, been listening to the likes of you guys, and, you know, even before Fear Not, of course, you know, back in the early 80s, beginning with Petra and onward. Mm-hmm. With the Turn or Burn thing, let me say that a different way. You know, like you said, it was just being real and serious with God, and kind of about repentance. And I know that the love of God is certainly there too, and his grace and all, but you guys being who you are, and in the band that you're with, do you feel that in more recent years, because God's love and grace is certainly there, but so is his calling us to repentance, do you feel that maybe, whereas bands, like you were saying, Gary, nobody wanted to waste time, it was, here's how it is, do you feel that it's swung so far the other way that maybe sometimes we look at God's love and grace, but then we forget about the repentance part? Would that be a fair assessment?
I think it's just presented in a different way now. It's you know, the hellfire damnation, don't get me wrong, it has its place, but right. If you look at who Jesus was, you know, he wasn't somebody who floated 3 feet off the ground preaching hellfire and damnation and condemnation. You know, he called us, he said, I have but one commandment, that ye love one another. You know, and I think that when you've seen the evolution of Christianity, I think the call to repentance comes from out loving everyone else. And when you can, you know, I try to live my life by what St. Francis Assisi said, at all times, let your life preach the gospel of Jesus Christ, and when necessary, speak. You know, and I think that your actions and your light, you know, can shine to the point that people are drawn to it, and they want to know what makes you different. But, you know, if you look at who Jesus spent his time with, he spent his time with the sick and the people that society were outcasting. And if he was walking around preaching condemnation and beating people over the head with stuff, those people wouldn't have been drawn to him the way that they were. I don't think that it's been watered down. I think it's just being presented differently, you know, and this new album that we're working on right now there's a lot of darkness in this album, you know, and there was some darkness in the previous EP, because the way that I write, you know, I didn't have problems until I became a Christian. You know, the devil had me right where he wanted me. I wasn't a threat, you know, so I didn't have problems. Life was easy. The warfare started when I accepted Christ, you know, so we kind of write from a perspective of we understand where you're at in your life right now, and we're going to meet you right where we are, and we're going to love you through it. You know, and so, I mean, that's my opinion. You know, the guys may, you know, have a completely different take on that, but I don't think it's watered down. I think it's just evolved and changed for the better to draw more people, because when you looked at the separatism back in the 80s, because I've been playing Christian music since I was in the 80s, if you were in a Christian band, people didn't like you. You know, there was a big separate scene, a little bit of crossover, you know, you saw, but for the most part, the Christian side had their sect and the secular side had their sect, and God called us to be in the world, just not of it. You know, so, you know, we have to make sure that we don't separate ourselves and build walls between the people that really need to be reached. You know, it's like my philosophy on playing churches. I love playing churches. I love those people, but honestly, they've got it. I'd rather be in the trenches, you know, and because those are the people that desperately need to see the love of God.
And I didn't mean to imply, guys, I, as a youngster listening to the likes of you and those who were before Fear Not, I received a lot of beating up for listening to the likes of Fear Not and so on. And so, Eddie, I certainly relate. I just kind of what I meant was sometimes and rightfully so, Eddie, as you were saying, the theme has shifted, I think, for the better. I just remember how even back then, even with the music, there was a lot of turn or burn, and now it is more of, you know, the love and grace. Anyway, enough of that. I remember receiving some of those verbal beatings from others because I listened to Christian rock and metal. I'm going to jump way ahead and then we'll revert back, but this would be a good juncture. Eddie, you alluded to the new material. Let's just go ahead and talk about that real quick. Struggle was released in March of this year. It's a wonderful song. Love the video, love the biker stuff. And to me, that the music was Struggle. It was full of grit and bluesy metal. The song's music to my ears. When can fans look forward to seeing a new full-fledged Fear Not album, guys?
It's probably going to be the beginning of next year. We were hoping for a late release, you know, maybe fourth quarter of this year, but just, you know, with everything going on, and then with just with the dynamics of the band as far as geographics are concerned, it's taking a little longer. So, but we're okay with that, you know, because we don't want to rush anything. You know, we want everything, every note that's going to be played on this record, every lyric that's going to be said on this record or sang on this record. You know, we want it to be just completely anointed and of God. We don't want to rush anything and say, basically, I think that would just be, you know, everything that we would want, right? Okay, you know, and we don't want to leave God behind at all. He's in front of us. So, or at least we're led by him. And so it looks like it's probably going to be the beginning of next year.
And I think, you know, to echo Larry's sentiment, you know, there might have been, you know, a little bit of us that jumped the gun a little bit and wanted to promise an album in 2021, but we have to understand that ultimately, as much as we love our fans, we play for an audience of one. What we do is to glorify Christ with what we do, and then Christ will work through us as vessels to reach the people that need to hear it, whether it's one, whether it's 1,000, whether it's 1,000,000. But we have to offer this up as a sacrifice of praise to him. And it has to be anointed. The message has to be right. And, so for those people that were wanting a 2021 release, I hope they understand that this will happen in God's timing and not ours. And we don't want to take the wheel of the bus back from him, and try to do things of our own accord. And because of that mentality, the songs that we write every single time we record something new, we're like, man, this is the best song on the album. And as of right now, Struggle may be the worst track, and because we keep getting so excited about the new things that are written, songs like Black Soul Sunshine and Beautifully Broken, and, a couple other surprises, that we just finished up, or I've got a couple more finishing vocal pieces on one called Lay It Down that is going to be, in my opinion, is going to be world changing, and it just continues to get better and better and better. And, we've got Chris has got a couple that we're getting to dive into, and hopefully after that, we should go to mastering and start on the artwork and look for an early 2022 release. But that's, again, it's not us driving the bus. It's gonna come out when God's ready for it to come out.
And just to give you guys a little rundown, I mean, everyone always asks me this, and so I figured I'd put it out to public. So here's how it works. I mean, I'm in California, Chris is in Nashville, Larry and Eddie are in Tulsa area. So the song has to be written, it has to be scratch tracked, which means a basic track has to be sent, and then I have to lay the drums down, and they basically after that start all over again. So it's an extra process. There's almost a whole, because I need to hear as much as I can of the song in order to feel how to play it. As same with Chris and the lead parts. So it bounces around. So and our producer's in Minnesota. So it's a wonderful electronic world, but we do it.
It works.
It works. Yeah. One of the coolest things ever. We had a guy in England. He reviewed Struggle, and he watched us he watched the video and he reviewed it, and he was like, with all the bands doing everything in separate places, this band sounds like it did it all together in a one room and blah, blah. Well, we did the EP together in one room pretty much, but the Struggle was completely, 3 states.
Well, Gary, was that Lee Spencer with Iridium Reviews out of England?
Yeah.
He's a good friend of ours.
Reaction?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. He's a good friend of ours. He's a mate. So Lee, if you're out there, buddy, we love you, and we'll be talking to you soon too. Mike, does anything good come out of Minnesota? You were mentioning your producer, Gary, and that's where Mike lives.
Well, I tell you what, he's the wheels behind the bus. I'm telling you.
Yeah. We call him the Mad Professor.
Well, let me tell you, Kent, there's this great Christian rock band in Minnesota called Old Man Down.
Yeah.
Nice.
I think we might have lost Chris, and I hope he comes back. I hope I didn't offend him with something I said. So guys, can y'all, Eddie, you dropped a few album titles, so that whets the appetite. Guys, do you all have a working title for the album? And if you do, can that be revealed as a working title?
We think we do, and then we write a new song, and then we think that's going to be the title. So it's, I don't know. I'll let Larry kind of carry that torch. We've kind of stuck on one predominantly. I'll let Larry name that.
Yeah, like he says, tentatively there is one, and it was one of the titles that he brought up as Beautifully Broken. which is one of my favorite songs so far. But again, you know, it may change down the road. I don't know, but yeah, when I started writing that song, I just kind of had my acoustic guitar and writing this riff, and I'm like, what in the world am I going to do with this thing? You know, and so I come in and I grab one of my electrics and I start tracking, and I get, you know, probably about halfway through the song, and I'm just getting really frustrated because I'm just like, I like the riff, but I just don't know how it's going to come out. And so I'm getting a little frustrated. So I leave the studio and I go out in the living room, and my wife's watching baseball, which we're baseball fans, and we, you know, so we'll watch the games, and our team, one of our teams, which is the Cardinals, and they just happen to be losing that day. So now I'm really mad. So I'm going back in the studio. So I go back in the studio and I'm just like, okay, what am I going to do? And man, I'm telling you, I started layering guitars, and it was like when I came back in, I just felt like, okay, the spirit just took over. And I came in and I was so floored that when I had, you know, the whole song basically from start to finish, with all the basic guitar tracks layered. I mean, it sounded so cool. I had to run out, grab my wife, and I said, and this doesn't usually happen, but I ran out. I said, you have to hear this, and brought her in. And I mean, I had it cranked. She was just kind of like, ah, but I mean, it just came together, and it's turning out to be one of my favorite ones. And then when Eddie laid the vocals down, it really just was like, oh, you know, so.
Hey, Larry.
So,
Oh. Can I ask you real quick? I'm just kind of curious. I mean, obviously, you know, all them years back when we all had the Fear Not album, you were singing, and I'm just kind of curious about the transition that happened in the band that brought Eddie in. And could you talk about that a little bit?
yeah, absolutely. So, so after, you know, Fear Not decided to go on its hiatus, you know, there was a lot of years in between, and we hadn't talked to each other for a long time. And for me, I thought, well, I guess that's it, you know, for music. And so I buckled down and got me a 9 to 5, and started working, and then somehow ended up in Oklahoma. Well, family here led us to Oklahoma. And so there was probably 10, possibly 15 years, I think, between that time of Fear Not and about 15 years later, I had done one recording, and that was I did the vocals for Robert Sweet on a solo record, and that was the only thing that I had done in all that time. And so then I started getting people calling me to do some singing guest spots on their records and things like that. But I hadn't done anything for a long time. And then when I really started to get back into music, I noticed that, man, I'm really struggling, you know, and I don't know if it was just I have done some damage, you know. I will soon find out because I have an appointment with an ENT. I want to go check out, see if there's anything going on. But I haven't been the same since. Now I can record, you know, all day long because I could sing a line, right? I could sing a line and then go sit down and drink a warm cup of coffee and then come back and sing again, you know. So it's not the recording part, and it was the whole live thing, because I'm like, I don't want to record music and not be able to go out and support it and sing it. You know, if I'm going to sing it, I want to be there singing. And so I had a long conversation with the guys, and because they were like, you know, I don't know, Larry, I don't know. you know, it's like I mean, basically you're fear not, you know, and I'm just like, no, it's not like that. You know, I mean, yeah, I mean, people recognize that, but I think it's beyond that. You know, I think we could find a good singer. It's been a lot of time that's passed, and I'm like, besides, nobody even knows who we are anymore. So I convinced them, and I'm like, I have a guy in mind, and Eddie and I had only known each other for a short period of time it was actually through the motorcycle ministries, but I knew that he was a singer for a band at one time, and didn't know at the time if he was actually still singing with this band. But I called him up and I'm like, Eddie, you know, if you're not doing anything, what do you think about this? And so he said, sure, let's give it a shot. And I had brought him over to my place, and we had recorded one of the songs that I had.
Love Is All Right.
Yeah, Love Is All Right. We tracked that in my studio, and I sent it to the guys, and they're like, yeah, this could work. So I hope that's, you know, I know that was kind of long, but yeah, so it's really just my conditioning, and maybe one day, you know, I'll be able to get back to where I was, but you know, I really do not mind where I'm at right now, where God has me, you know, and things seem to be working really good, and so I just hope everybody else receives it real well, because we love Eddie. We love Eddie's voice. I mean, it's way much more thicker and richer than mine. Yeah, so that's the transition.
Yeah, and the newer stuff I've listened to, it sounds pretty good. So I don't think it's going to be a problem. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. One thing I would interject also is, man, there's a chemistry in this band, and there always has been. It's the most amazing thing, especially like Larry will send a riff over, and it's just like automatically I can hear what's going on top of it or what needs to happen, or I'll send him something and he'll be just like, oh, dude, yeah, we got to do this. Same thing with Eddie, man. We sat down. We were in this Kyle's studio a few years ago when we did Don't Want None. And I mean, we'd all sat over at Larry's house and came up with the idea for it the night before. And we came and sat down, and Eddie walked in, you know, after, you know, I recorded some lines and stuff. And he just sat there and he was just like writing and writing and writing. I kept looking over going, what's the deal? And he was, what's he doing? I mean, not even 15 minutes later, he'd already come up with a verse and a chorus that was just outstanding. And to me, that's a mark of a band that's got a lot of really good chemistry. The same thing with Rod and Gary, man. Just some of the stuff, it just seems like they automatically know what to do and how things are supposed to go. We all hear things the same way. I think it's kind of a God thing, but it's a really important thing.
It was funny too, because Gary was actually tracking the drums. We were all there. Gary was tracking the drums, and you know, Eddie's there, and he's hearing all the tracks, and you know, I mean, the guitars were just meaty, and I mean, it was like Gary hits the last boom, and you hear Eddie jump up, you know, like stop, set up the mic, and he had it all right there. He ran in there, man, and he just laid it down, and it was like, that's it. That's so it.
We all have
the coolest thing is the producer. The night before we were all there, we went back to Larry's right before we left the studio. We had been talking with some friends and a couple of people who, like Brad, one of the ones who came into the studio, and we've been talking with them the whole weekend about what song are we going. We were going to do a remake from the first album with Eddie singing it, and so Eddie had already gone, and we canned it like 10 o'clock at night. We're not doing that. We're not going to do and you know, we're leaving the next night. So it's like, what are we going to do? We got to do one more. We're all set up. Everything's ready. The drums are there. And these guys on the way home, Chris says, I got an idea. And so we sit on the couch at Larry's house, and they start basically wrote the song right there on the couch at midnight. And the next morning we go and we go in the studio, and the producer's queuing up the remake we were going to do. And we're like, no, And Larry goes in there and lays it down, and before you know it, Eddie comes in and has the lyrics already in his head. It was mind-boggling.
Well, I think the thing about the chemistry too that's incredible is that was the first time that all 5 of us were ever together in one part,
Right.
and we wrote that EP in 3 days.
Yeah.
We came in with one song. We came in with Love Is All Right, and the other 4 songs came as a result of sitting in the studio with a riff that got built out by our producer to turn it into what that EP was. And that's the magic of Kyle. He is the 6th member of this band, and I had worked with Kyle through even the Dogs. So they didn't know him. I suggested him and they fell in love with him. And now I think probably Larry even has a better relationship with Kyle than I do. And I've worked with the guy for 10, 12 years, but this is the same way with this album. Larry came in, Black Soul Sunshine was a riff, and I went over to his house, and before I left 3 hours later, it was a completed track. And the good thing about this for Fear Not fans is, Larry, we've changed the way we record. I used to record in my studio by myself. They would send their stuff, we just drag it off Dropbox into our studio software, and that's what we do. And I've alleviated that and started going and working directly with Larry together. So you're going to hear a lot of Larry's influence, on the vocals, as they come through. But the beauty is Gary corrects me all the time. I always would say, you guys, and he's like, no, it's us. They've always been very, very welcoming as me not being a hired gun, as me being a part of this band. And Larry allows me to do what I do, but still interjects enough of his influence in there to make sure that the foundation of Fear Not is still there. Because, it was a little bit of a learning curve for me because I was a new metal vocalist, and to go back into singing stuff that has a little more of a classic feel, that's a totally different vocal styling, and, Larry's got that down pat, and it is Fear Not's backbone. And, so he's been a really good coach at making sure that the songs, that it's not just me and then the 4 guys from Fear Not writing the music, to where it's all cohesive now. And so I think you'll hear so much growth on this new album to A, getting back to the roots, but B, being very modern and relevant in today's world. So it's going to be that perfect synergy, and we're so excited to get it out there and get people to hear it, because there's a lot of messages on there that need to be heard in today's society.
From For the Wounded Heart, the EP, which was released in 2019, Don't Want None, Come Get Some. Eddie, that reminded me, your all's musical delivery and your vocals, and I thought it was very cohesive. To me, it reminded me, because see, I'm a sucker for bluesy metal, if that makes sense. Kind of like what Cinderella did on their Heartbreak Station. I love that stuff. And to me, I got a heavy metal Kenny Wayne Shepherd vibe from Don't Want None, Come Get Some. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I'm thinking about the song Blue on Black. And it just all kind of, I got it. Okay, that's my listening experience as a fan, and I dug it. And I heard Struggle. And I think Mike hit the nail on the head. Larry had a wonderful grit, which was more in the classic vibe back then, but the thicker tones musically with the modern production that you guys are laying down, these nice, thick, beefy tones. Eddie, you're a great fit, buddy. And we welcome you with open arms. We dig you, man.
Well, thank you very much.
Come on.
Hey, what's funny?
Well, I know that there's been, it was tough. I had some private conversations, with Larry, because, Larry is such a definitive voice. He's got one of those definitive vocal stylings that the minute he sings, you know who he is. like Steven Tyler or, like that. He's got that signature tone.
Sure.
And the diehard Fear Not fans wanted 1993 Fear Not in 2019. And, I understand that, the singer, having been a singer all my life, I know that there never was going to be anybody come in and replace me in Even the Dogs. The signature sound that I had was Even the Dogs. But the thing about it is that God has called us to grow and has called us to evolve. And, you look at bands, not that they're doing anything wrong, but you look at bands like Rat and all these guys that are coming back on tour, they're just a 70-year-old version of what they were in the 80s. And there's no evolution. We have grown and evolved and become relevant in today's music world, which you don't see bands do, and I think that is a true testament to humility, because, we went in as 5 guys with 5 totally different music directions and musical stylings and said, how are we going to be relevant today? And it was only a God thing, the reason why it happened. And it was us being humble enough to be open to each other's ideas to be able to make it happen. And, the one thing about it is really there's no bickering in there in the writing process, which is amazing, because you get in here and one person really wants to drive the bus musically, it's like, oh, it's going to be my way, and it's not that way. Everybody welcomes everything with open arms. And that doesn't mean everything's accepted. Absolutely not. There's lines that I'll lay down, and then Larry will be like, well, try it this way. And then his way will end up being better, and I think that if we ever think we've arrived, we need to get out of it. We need to be smart, hungry, humble, and write music that's going to be relevant for today rather than trying to rewrite 1993.
Sure.
Yeah.
So
Can't real quick. You mentioned Blue on Black.
Mm-hmm.
We kicked around doing that song live.
Yeah.
So, as a cover. So
my ears really weren't deceiving me, right?
no.
So guys, there's an old saying, right? The proof's in the pudding. Well, anybody out there, go listen to Struggle. It fits. It works. I'm not lying. I wouldn't say that, Granted, we all have our own respective listening experiences. I understand music is relative. What people consider awesome, but I'm just saying this is great. I'm digging Fear Not. I'm glad what I'm hearing, and it's all a warm welcome to me. Bon Scott from AC/DC, and when Bon passed, who took over Bon?
Brian Johnson.
Brian Johnson.
Thank you. Both are just excellent singers for what they do. And so, guys, it's all good. The proof's in the pudding. The proof to me is Struggle. And before that, actually, don't want none, come get some. Love Is All Right, Shipwrecked Hypocrite. Good stuff, guys. Good stuff. Before we revert back, I do want to ask really quick, since we've been talking about where Fear Not is at now, with regard to musical styling, guys, what can fans expect stylistically with the new forthcoming album? We'll just call it tentatively Beautifully Broken. What can fans expect musically, guys?
That's a good question, because it's when Chris and I were talking a little while back, when we decided to actually put together a full-length album, you can't help but get the discussions of, man, should we kind of go back in time and start bringing back some of those old riffs, And Chris was like, Larry, no plan, no agenda, write what you feel comes to your heart, man. And then, and if it starts working, we'll go with it. If it doesn't, then we'll set it aside and we'll come back and we'll revisit or whatever. So, so Beautifully Broken and Struggle, kind of like Struggle over here, Beautifully Broken over here. But I wish I could get you a little clip of it just so you can kind of compare and hear what I'm talking about. But at the same time, there's a cohesiveness to everything, you know, even though there's a little bit of different stylings to it, you know. Struggle, definitely more heavy, more bluesy. Beautifully Broken, more, what would you say, guys? I mean, it's still got a heaviness to it, but it's almost Foo
I would
Fighters-ish.
say, yeah, I would say if you're going to look at diversity on this, there's a cohesion on Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, but it's such a diverse musical set of albums that I think that probably would be a good parallel to, we're going to run the gamut on this thing. You know, we've still got a couple tracks that are Chris's that we're going to do. One of them's very heavy, you know, and one of them is resonator, you know, and, you know, I want to go back just 2 seconds and talk about that. Lay it all down musically. And he always cuts this really cool, he has this cool way of cutting a trash vocal where he's mumbling, but it sounds like something. I've never seen anything like it. I just write, you know, and so I start writing as I'm listening to the music, and I call him up, and I haven't even gotten to the chorus yet, and he hasn't answered. I said, I got the title, and I hear him sing the chorus, and I said, you're never going to believe this. And he's like, what? I said, the first thing that came to mind was Lay It Down. And that's what he was singing on the chorus. And that's how we knew it was a God thing. We had not talked about this. He just sent me the raw track.
Now, who was this, Eddie? Because you broke up. Was it Chris, did you say?
No, it was Larry.
Oh.
So, yeah, Larry had written the music, but he had hummed out Lay It All Down. And I had come up with the title of Lay It Down before I ever heard him say it. And we both just kind of freaked out like it was a vision or something that we had, but that's the kind of chemistry.
Yeah. Well, and not to mention,
but when you're looking at the diverse, go ahead.
No, not to mention that, I mean, the title now is Lay It All Down, but that song to me is a classic late 80s, early 90s power ballad. So you got that too, you know. But
until Kyle gets a hold of it, then we don't know what it's going to be.
It will be, I promise you.
Yeah, but this album's going to run the gamut. We did exactly as God led us to do, you know. And there's going to be something on there for everybody, no matter what style of music you're into. I won't say what it is, but we're even doing a cover, so you guys can get really excited about that. And it's amazing. It is absolutely amazing. So, you know, there's going to be something for everybody on there. And like I said, we're just excited. We can't rush it. We got to make sure it's right. But when it comes out, it's going to be something.
Hey, do you guys, Larry, could I play him a slight snippet of Beautifully Broken? I have it queued.
You do?
Yeah.
If it'll come across, I don't know if it will.
Ready? Let's try it.
Even now, I can't wait for the fall of the
Sure.
Eddie, what did you say the name of that cover was again?
I'm
We
not
did.
telling you.
Nice.
That was a really good
Nice try.
attempt. I'll give
That
you
was
credit.
good, right?
An A for effort.
Almost worked.
All right, Eddie's on top of things. He's a pro. So, well, guys, let's go back to a question that I was curious about then, because I'm totally stoked. Count me in line for the new album. I'm sure Rex and Mike are right there with me. Love Life. That album has actually received a lot of accolades. What was the catalyst? How did you guys come up with Love Life back in circa 1991, 91? And then my next question is going to be how you guys arrived with Blonde Vinyl Records, because that was Michael Gerard Knotts. I'm very familiar with his work. He did a lot of alt rock bands back in the day, and you guys were anything but alt rock. So
Yeah.
how did we get to the name Love Life? And then how did Love Life get on Blonde Vinyl Records?
Larry, Gary.
Well, you know, when we go back and we talk about how many names that we went through, we just could not settle on a name. And I had a cousin who was in a band back then, and they were actually called Love Life. And I always liked that name. I'm like, God, that's kind of a cool name. And then the play on words, you know, because it's not like how's your love life, right? It's love/life.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had been disbanded for a while, and I don't know why it popped into my head, but I called all the guys up from the old Love Life band. I said, "You guys mind if we use your name?" And they're like, "No, man, feel free." And so I brought it to Gary and them, and they're like, "What do you think of this?" And it seemed to sit well, so we went with it. And then speaking of my cousin, he was in an alternative band, and you know, we had actually we didn't find that out until afterwards. But we were playing this club somewhere in Monrovia, I think, Gary,
Yeah.
or someplace.
La Papillons.
La Papillons, is that what it was?
Yeah.
And I guess Michael's band was playing there that night, and I had, unbeknownst to me or us, but then somehow he got Chris, who he was working with, his AR guy and our guy. And while we were playing, I guess he looked over it and said, "Why aren't these guys signed?" And so they approached us, and then we got to meet and stuff, and we knew that it was an alternative label after getting to know him. We're like, "How is this going to work?" And he's like, "Well, let's just have fun with it, you know." And we're like, "Okay, well," because the deal was good, you know, it was just like a one record, you know, one album deal. So we just went with it. We said, well, it couldn't hurt to get our songs recorded, you know. So and Mike's a cool guy. Chris, who came in while we were recording it, he's a cool guy, you know. I mean, I basically produced that whole record, you know. I mean, Chris was there to kind of coach along, and we knew it was good because he hated, you know, pop rock or rock and roll. He was completely alternative. And so every time we'd get through a part or section, I'd say, "Hey, Chris, come listen." I'm like, "What do you think?" And he'd go, "I hate it." And I go, "Okay, it's perfect then."
We were fortunate enough too to actually, it kind of set the stage for Fear Not To, because we recorded that in the B studio at Pachyderm. So, you know, the ears of the Night Owl Elefantes were on that album, you know, every once in a while. So that kind of gave them an introduction to us and us to them. We didn't really get to meet them that much or see them that much, but they were around, and there was other bands recording in and out of the studio while we were in the studio too. So, but that kind of gave us an introduction to the studio, and it was a good thing.
So that's a good segue then, Gary, because, well, first of all, Love Life, it's gotten accolades for those who knew the album back then. And my next question following that would be, because we would never hear from Love Life again, but we would certainly hear from Fear Not, because in 1993, that eponymous album hit on Pachyderm Records and it made waves. My question was, how did the band capture the attention of the constituents of Pachyderm Records, meaning the Elefantes or J.R. McNeely? So was that how that happened through Love Life?
Waiting for the tumble, standing on the fall line.
Well, I think what happened was we did a lot of shows and we were really good friends with Guardian, and I think they went to bat for us. I'm not 100% sure. Larry can probably confirm that. Chris might be able to, but this is a weird thing, but you've heard of the band Jars of Clay, right?
Yeah.
Well, that record deal with that producer was offered to us. We went to this really cool studio in Newport Beach, California, and this Adrian Ballou? Is that the guy's name, right? Anyway,
that sounds familiar.
That was one of the guys from King Crimson and those guys. He was going to. What's that?
It is Adrian Ballou.
Yeah, Adrian Ballou was there, and they were going to sign us to this label called Essential, and we had worked with a friend of Larry's cousin. He was managing us a little bit, and he ended up starting that label. And we got, like, the next day we got an offer from Pachyderm too, and we were like, wait, we're going to go with an unknown, good producer, good. The studio was amazing. I mean, everything was that obviously you heard the Jars of Clay's first record. That was not that we would have sounded like that at all, but we had an offer for that label and that deal. And we took Pachyderm because our friends were on that label. They were Christians. They were from, we had the Elefante brothers, and we just that was our choice. But at that time, I'm not sure exactly how they heard of us.
Well, Guardian, I'm sure had a lot to do with it, because I know John and Dino had their, they were watching us. They were, they wanted to see, I think, how we were, off stage as well as on stage, right? Because they weren't playing. When you say you're a Christian band, you better be a Christian band. They wanted you to be real as can be, and so there was a lot of accountability there. But I remember talking to Tony Palacios backstage at one of the shows, and he mentioned to me that they were kind of watching us, and that he had said that you guys are ready, you guys are ready to make that step, the next step, from where we were into the Pachyderm studios and working with John and Dino, and but before that, we had our guitar player from Love Life had left, and we had the whole time I knew that I wanted Chris. We didn't even really know each other, but we would see each other at the NAMM shows every now and then, and I'm like, I want that guy, and Gary and I went to hunt him down at one NAMM show one year, and we ended up meeting. We were walking out, and he was walking in, and it just happened that I spotted him, and I'm like, there he is, let's go get him, But so we met. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Just in the process of, as you're telling this story,
Yes.
Try and include how you came to the name Fear Not.
Yeah. So when we met with Chris, we met a time to meet, and I said, I got some songs that I want you to hear, and I gave him the Love Life CD, and he took the Love Life CD home, and I called him up and said, you want to get together and talk? And he said, sure. And I brought I think I brought the cassette tape with some of the new stuff at that time. I don't think he'd heard it yet. And thankfully he agreed to meet because he did not like the Love Life stuff at all. But
It wasn't
yeah, so
my thing. It's a great.
but yeah, and he wasn't looking for that. He wasn't looking for that at the time. But so he's like, yeah, you know, I mean, it's really good. It's really good, but it's just not what I'm looking for, you know. And I go, well, how about this? And I had a cassette tape at that time, you know. I don't even know if any, I don't have any laying around here, but so he puts it in and he plays it. And he goes, yeah, that's more bluesier. That's more, it was Give It Up. It was Give It Up. And I think There Was Love that I had.
Love. Yep.
And he's like, yep, that's it. And so we started rehearsing together and writing songs and then we actually brought in Michael Cuddy from Holy Soldier for, you know, maybe a few months, maybe it could have been longer, maybe,
Yeah.
I don't know. But so when he came in, we adopted the name Fear No Evil. And we may have done one show under that name, you know, that was the name that Michael brought in. And so when he decided to leave, and I believe he left to go back to Holy Soldier, Chris just came up and said, why don't we just shorten it? Why don't we just call it Fear Not? You know, and I was like, I don't know. But it stuck. But it stuck. Fear Not. I kept saying in my head, Fear Not, Fear Not. You know, and I think maybe he even wrote it out. I don't remember. But then I was like, yeah, that's good. That I think that'll work. So we stuck with that.
So when you guys were recording that album, you know, did you have any idea it was going to be as huge as it was? I mean, you know, not trying to brag or whatever, but like, did you guys like, yeah, this is gonna crush it? Were you guys pretty excited about it?
So Rex, I'll let Chris talk too. I'm sorry, Chris. I'll let you talk. Let me just, so when we recorded that, you got to remember that was early 90s. There was no Facebook. There was a couple little things. There was Twitter. We did Cornerstone. We played some shows out, you know, but we were in the Hollywood, in the California bubble, you know, so we didn't know. It was fan mail. There was no email. So
Right.
we got fan mail from all over the country, you know, to our little PO box. But, you know, I didn't know the ratio of like one letter represented however many thousand people who actually liked you. But so I still have that box of fan letters. It's like,
I have one too.
Yeah.
I do.
So we kept playing, but what the first year went by, and then at that point, you know, Nirvana killed us. You know, the grunge thing came in and it silenced the hair metal. And at that point, we were being pressured because the record label moved to Nashville. All the bands were in Nashville. Nashville was the hub because Guardian's model was the perfect model. You live in Nashville, you can go out every Friday night, you can play in any of those 10 states that surround it, play Friday night, Saturday night, come home, go back to work. Because we were working, we all had families, we were working.
Right.
And so it wasn't a matter of, we weren't old, but we weren't the youngest band at the time. We'd all been seasoned and older. So we couldn't jump in a van and go travel for 300 days. So like some of the bands are doing now and some of the bands didn't, that's what some did. But so Chris actually moved to Nashville and the label said, hey, you guys need to move to Nashville. And we basically, at that point, you know, after the first year of that first album, we were like, we did a lot of stuff for that year, but then it kind of we were like, okay, it's time to make a new album. Pachyderm, you know, gave us the option, but we just didn't, you know, we didn't, you know, soon after that, Larry moved to Oklahoma. So it was one of those things where we really didn't know how we got back together to do what we're doing now. Was obviously a God thing, but it was guys like you who met Larry and said, hey, what if we put together a weekend where you guys can do a reunion? The four of us got together. This was before Eddie. And we were like, wow, this is cool. This is really cool. We still can do this. So that's kind of how, I mean, I might have went off subject, but that's kind of how things went. We didn't know how big we were, Rex. We had no clue. We thought.
Well, I remember that year that came out in '93. I played the heck out of that album, and I'm like, this is awesome. And I was really hoping for another album, and always kind of wondered like what happened. And I don't know if I'm getting ahead of things here, but like you've kind of alluded to it. Is that just what happened? You guys were kind of all in a different place, and okay.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, Rex, we honestly, when Gary says we had no idea, we really didn't. We, when We Have a God came out, it did do well. I think in the CCM it went #1, and stuff. And we knew, okay, so this could be good, but even while we were recording that record, I know that us as a band were loving it, because here we are, sitting in here with JR, and you got John and Dino, and we're just like, this is just amazing, and they really, it was everything that we thought making a record was going to be. It was an amazing time. It was fun, but they worked our tails off. It was like, this is serious. We're going to work, and it was great. And it wasn't till years later when we started talking and coming back together, and then all of a sudden social media hits, and you're seeing all this stuff, and then you're reading all these things about, hey, whatever happened to Fear Not, or what about Fear Not? And then you start reading, and you're like, oh my gosh, these people actually, they actually liked us. It was mind blowing. And then to find out that, South America, that how, big we were in South America, and even some parts of Japan, and it's just like amazing, mind blowing. And we're like, wow, and so we thought, let's do something, because this wasn't about us in the beginning, let's get together, and it was about, let's do something special for these people who, may not even know what happened, and let's put something out there and celebrate them.
And one of the things too, Rex and guys, is I'm gonna be blunt and honest and candid here. We kind of got a raw deal timing wise from, and we would go, and we used to say, don't borrow us unless you know us, because people wouldn't pay us. People, you've heard stories, and we were wanting to do it really bad. It was the desire of our hearts to be full-time traveling rock and roll musicians. And it just didn't happen. It just wasn't, for some reason. I think it was because of the grunge thing happening. It just, everyone always, we read those things on YouTube, and whatever happened to this band? These were the best. They should have made it. We should. And it's like, well, we should have, and maybe we were done. We're not done yet. And that's kind of where we're at now. But that whole things that you read and things that you hear, and that whole paving the way for people who are really doing it now, we kind of took the blows for that. We would, we had too much hair and makeup for churches, and we had the wrong message for clubs. So it was that time of breakthrough, and I feel like God used us to be one of the bullets that broke through that barrier. Not that we were a crossover band or we weren't a Christian, but we kind of paved the way for the bands who actually got to do what we wanted to do. And you can't regret anything. There's no regrets in this band at all. We're still killing it. So
Well, and that's one of the reasons we're doing this channel is, I think sometimes maybe some of these bands that we grew up in when we were in our teens and early 20s, they don't realize what they've meant to us and what they've done. And you guys and other bands were, because we all grew up in church, you're kind of like our youth pastors, even, so to speak, where your lyrics and that are speaking to us and dealing with real world issues. And we just kind of want to give back to these bands too and let them know, hey man, we loved you then, we love you now. We, if you're still doing stuff, we want to let people know, because there's a lot of fans, like you said, they're all over the world, not just here in America. And now with the internet and all of that, we can, let people know what's going on with these bands that they loved, back in the day.
We can't thank you enough for that either.
Humbling.
I mean, that's awesome. And and you're right, because I've read so many times, and after I've kind of put myself out there on social media, and then people friending me and saying, you have no idea what that album meant to me, or what, I actually had one guy tell me that the song Suicide Sunshine basically saved his life, that he was on the verge, of just ending it all. And now he's got a wife and kids. And, I couldn't help but just get emotional when he was telling me. I'm just like, are you kidding me? And it's things like this. I would have never have known that. There's no way that we would have hooked up without, any of this type of stuff. So it's amazing. It's amazing. And I'm humbled, and it's just mind blowing.
Well, you guys encouraged us as artists when we were kids, and we're kind of like, paying it back, so to speak. We're wanting to encourage you guys now and just let you know, like, yeah, hey, there was a lot of people that loved you guys and appreciated you. I mean, all these bands that we, talk to and whatnot, and you can just tell they're all very appreciative, and just, you can tell you're touching them, because I think sometimes they just don't realize, hey, did we, matter that much? Did we really influence anyone? And, just, what I'm saying? Just
yes, I do.
And everything. So, that's kind of why we're doing this too, and just let people know what's going on with some of these artists and that.
Angelic Warlord. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that site. It's kind of an album review and rating site and all, and they sing, well, Love Life and Fear Not, the 93 release. They sing the album's praises. The 1993 eponymous release, it got an evaluation of 90% from them.
Wow.
And that's outstanding. And guys, I am so thankful. Another testament to you all is that, Rock's Records, of course, both Love Life and the 93 album have been re-released, remastered, re-released. That's a testament to the music that you guys were producing then. And the music you guys are producing now, I am so happy. I mean, for 26 years, kind of like Rex was saying, it's like, where did our guys go? We love, Fear Not was a band then, guys, and it's a band now. I don't know if this will sound really funny. All you have to do, guys, is go back. Fear Not has always been a band that I've never been ashamed of. Because, I'm not ashamed of the gospel message, the good news of Christ. Man, you guys bring the chops. You guys bring the music, and I can't think of another band. I'm just picturing Struggle right now. Like I mentioned earlier, I absolutely love the bluesy metal. Mm-hmm. And you guys are bringing these thick slabs of that. And I really don't know. That. I don't really know who else does it. I'm sure there are other Christian-oriented bands, but I'm so proud of you guys, because you guys, the same, the message of Christ is in my heart, and you guys are certainly bold with that, but you guys are bringing that music and the look. You guys are who you are, and I hope sometimes as a fan, from a fan's perspective, if you can do it, guys, go back and look at Struggle, and it's like, you know, may you just give thanks to God, right? Because he deserves all the praise. But I can't sing the vessel that Fear Not is. I am proud to say this is a wonderful vessel, and I'm proud to share it with other people because the Lord has blessed you guys with the musical chops and the vocal chops, and we're just thankful for you guys. I don't know how else to say it.
Wow.
Well, we appreciate that, and you know, thank you so much. It's like I said, Struggle in our opinion right now may be the worst track on the new album. So and we thought when we wrote it, wow, this is amazing, and it just continues to evolve. So, you know, to hear you guys say, you know, the things that you do about us today and the 1993 version and the impact that it made is honestly very humbling, and you know, probably we don't deserve it, but we'll take it.
Yeah.
Do you guys have like a website or just your Facebook page where fans can connect with you?
Gentlemen, I hate to say it, but my phone is dying, so I'm gonna jump off of here. It was an honor and a privilege to meet you guys, and I just didn't want it to zap out before I did it. I wanted to let you know that I've got about 2% left. So
It's been a pleasure, Eddie.
Yeah,
thank you
thank
so
you,
much.
Eddie.
Meet you, Eddie.
my pleasure.
brother.
You guys be
Thank you.
blessed.
Been such
Have a great day, Eddie. Have fun at the game, bub.
Thank you.
Go Penn State. So we have a ReverbNation site.
Okay.
And
Okay.
that's kind of our EPK, you'd say, if you want to book us. We're
Okay.
available for bookings anywhere, anytime. Just let us know when you want us to come. And I want to put that out there too, is I think a lot of times because of like you guys, we're fans and you know, the whole rock star thing, whatever, I don't understand too much. But I think people might have the impression that it's $1 million to have Fear Not come play at their shows or at their festivals or at their, and it's not. We're not. We're all. I'm not going to say we're like highly successful millionaire guys, but we're all doing okay, and we're not doing this for money. I mean, we don't. You guys want to send us money? Cool. We need it in our tour fund, but because
So
we
it's
like
only
these-
999,000.
Yeah, we'd love to take whatever is given to us and bless and play for people. People want to see us live, and it's hard because if you have 100,000 fans spread out throughout the world, you don't have a condensed amount of fans, and so we need to build that fan base up. So what basically I'm doing a selfish plug, but we want to play gigs. We want to get out there and minister. We want to go talk to kids. We want to play. We want to do what we used to do. It's just anytime, anywhere we could possibly play, we want to play. It's not free but it could be free if we had the right funding. We don't want to, you know, we're not looking to sell 1 million records and retire off into the sunset. We're looking to talk to, shake hands, hug. You guys we've told this to everybody we've met and we've spent time with. Once you're in, you're in our family. So it's like, we want to meet more family members. We want to make this family big. I mean, we want to go and you know, hang out with people and play our music and because we enjoy playing and we enjoy sharing the gospel and we enjoy, you know, hugging kids, you know, hugging people, hugging our brothers, you know. So with that said, if anyone's watching this and you ever thought about throwing a Fear Not concert, do it. You know, we'll help as much as we can. You know, we all work 8 to 10 hours a day in our day jobs, and then we write music at night. So, and Larry and I are both worship leaders at church. So, you know, so we do our thing, but Fear Not is what we want to do. It's the desire of our heart. And we feel like the enemy attacks us, the more he attacks, the more we know this is God. The reason the album gets pushed off is because, like Larry said, God's doing a work in his timing, not ours. So that's my selfish plug for Fear Not. We want to get out and play in 2022. We have one gig in Oklahoma coming up. Would love to see everybody out there if you're anywhere near Oklahoma. Chakota, is that how you say it, Larry?
Dakota.
Chakota. I don't have that twang yet. Chakota.
And that is November the 6th at 9 p.m. Central Time at Faith Church in Chakota, Oklahoma. And I will, and friends out there, whenever you see this, I will put Fear Not's Facebook page address in the description. I will also put the ReverbNation for Fear Not, the address in the description. But yes, Saturday, November the 6th at 9 p.m. Central Time at Faith Church in Chakota, Oklahoma.
Hey, Mr. Attitude, you think you're finally on the cool, but you fall to pieces every time you turn around.
So I want to ask Chris, guys, I'm loving the thick tones and everything with the struggle video and everything. And I can't help it, I love everybody in Fear Not equally, but Chris just looks so cool. And he's up there sliding those heavy, thick blues. Chris, let's talk about that, man. Tell me about that sliding.
Okay, so when I first moved to Tennessee, I had an accident and I almost had to have my finger amputated. I couldn't play guitar. It was my ring finger and on my left hand, and that is a very important finger for any guitar player out there. You realize that. And what had happened was I crushed the end of my finger right below my second digit so bad that they were going to amputate it. My wife at the time, they were telling her that they're going to, and she's like, you can't do that. He's a professional musician. I was supposed to be going on tour. And they had a surgeon from Vanderbilt, which is a famous hospital out here, took a look at my finger and stitched it back together. But there was so much scar tissue in the end, I couldn't play guitar for like almost 2 years. At that point, I'd gone to work for Gibson Guitar Custom Shop, but it was just driving me crazy, and I couldn't. As a guitar player, man, you just need to be able to express yourself. So I'd fooled around with slide before, but it just became more and more prevalent because I taught myself how to play. Not only could I play leads, but also do slide at the same time, which is what initially I get hired in for a lot of times in Nashville. But that was one of those things where God just kind of took something bad and just turned it into something really good for me and changed a lot of stuff. But that's how that has kind of gotten incorporated into the Fear Not thing. Is that's another Bible.
And if I can add just quickly, and that is the reason, because when we first started talking, Chris is just like, man, I just don't know if I could shred like I did back in the Fear Not days, with that injury and everything. And I'm just like, dude, you could do it. And he kept saying, well, you could sing. And I'm like, okay. but and by the way, he can still shred, believe me. But when he was telling me the story and then he was playing the slide stuff, I go, and that hence kind of the direction. I'm like, okay, we are going to incorporate that into our sound now, because that's who you are. That's who you were back in the day. You always loved the blues. I love the blues. That's where I came from, the old 70s style. So it's coming out now. It's coming out.
Yep.
Well, it's great, and I embrace. There is quite enough of the old school Fear Not, but the modern production and kind of the evolution of the band, it's working. And I can't speak for God, but I'm just saying, it's evident that you love him, and the Lord, he takes delight in his children, right? And I just firmly believe that he is guiding you guys along, and I'm really looking forward to the new release. I think it's going to be epic and stellar. So
I received that.
And I have one more thing to say on record here. And Chris
Boy.
Sorensen will agree with me.
Yeah.
Is that I believe people don't realize and people underestimate everyone said, "Oh, Larry's the best singer." Is this? They don't understand the phenomenal guitar player that Larry is.
Yeah.
If you watch that struggle video and you hear some, like when you're listening to our record, you might not know that Larry's playing some of those parts that he's playing, but he is. Am I wrong, Chris? From guitar player?
I always tell people that Larry's playing is more, it's calculated, more focused, and mine's just like takes off on flights of fancy, and just kind of what comes out comes out. You know, I just kind of play straight from the hip. But yeah, it's just Larry underestimates himself, actually.
Yeah.
And I have to get on him about that sometimes because, man, he is such a gifted and great guitar player.
He is.
So, yep.
Yeah, Larry has the lead. He has the fretwork lead on that one on Struggle. I know. And
He does, man. And I mean, he just tears it up. I love it. I love that whole little, you know, the attitude, and man, he's just
Crazy.
he's just got fire. So
now, guys, before we completely wrap it up, forgive me. I can't remember what Eddie said. What did he say the name of that cover was again on the album?
Oh yeah, it was "You're Never Gonna Get It Out of Us Right Now."
We found a love straight from the top, and it's coming down. Ain't gonna stop.
So, friends, I also want to mention not only, let's see here, in 2019, we had For the Wounded Heart, that EP came out, but also Larry recorded Testify, a solo worship album, and that was also released on Rox Records. Larry, if you don't mind, just share a few words about your solo worship album.
Well, that was something that had been stirring on my heart for a number of years. When I moved to Oklahoma, you know, I wasn't, the whole music thing was kind of put on the side burner, but I always wanted to be a worship leader in church. And when I came to Oklahoma, I got that opportunity, you know, and I always loved worship. I just, something about it, you know, I mean, it's just that personal connection that you get when you're just, you know, even alone. My best times are just by myself, you know, and man, I know the Lord was just dropping things on my heart because it was so strong, but I just never really had an opportunity to do anything. And then when we built the relationship with Rox Records, I just approached them about, you know, hey, listen, I have this idea, you know, I know it's totally way off from what you normally do, but I mean, would you consider? And I mean, he didn't hesitate. He was just like, absolutely, you know. So I just said, all I want to do is 10 songs that, you know, just mean something to me. They're all covers, you know, but just that are just special to me. And so I had a couple people from my worship team come in and play a lot of the instruments, you know, and do some background singing and stuff. So, and we just put it together, and it came out, you know, I was really pleased on how it come out. So yeah, that was just something God put in my heart, and I just wanted to see it come to fruition, you know, and he did, he brought it. So it was awesome.
Very cool. Very cool. And friends, you can check out one of the singles for that, Lead Me to the Cross. That's on YouTube. So you can check that out. Just look up Larry Worley and Lead Me to the Cross, and you'll see it there. So anyway, thanks for sharing about that, Larry.
Well, thanks for asking.
Savior, I come, quiet my soul. Remember.
Guys, I would be very remiss if I did not mention your friend and our friend, Brad Buell.
Yep.
Brad, I just want to send you a shout out, buddy. We have a wish list for Area 312 of bands that we've always loved, and Fear Not was on there. And we just, I don't know, we just randomly, it's like, well, let's try to get these guys or whatever. But Brad, just through well, I guess the Lord wanted today to be you guys, because Brad said, hey, he goes, man, if you guys would ever wish to get Fear Not, he said, I'm friends with them and I can point you in the right direction. I said, yeah, Brad, they're on our wish list. And so, Brad, thank you, buddy, because here we are, and this is a blessing. And it is for us anyway, for the Fear Not guys. I might be going, what have you done, Brad?
No, this is awesome.
So, guys, we're kind of nearing toward the end of the time here. If you could impart any words of wisdom or leave a lasting impression with your fans, what would you wish to tell them?
Okay, so, I don't want to get preachy or anything, but I'm going to. So because, I mean, the world that we live in right now is crazy, right? If you allow it to, there is the potential of fear that could, just swallow you up, if you're not careful. But perfect love casts out all fear, right? But what the Lord has impressed upon me more than anything now is that, and it was the time where the like Peter and them, they were on the boat in the sea, and they look out and the morning comes and here comes Jesus, walking on the water, and they're like, what is that? What in the world is that? Is that a ghost or what? And they become, they were just scared out of their wits, right? They were frightened. That's what it says. They were frightened. So Jesus says, don't be afraid. It's me, and of course, Peter, if it is you, tell me to come out there. Get me on the water. So Peter, he gets out, he gets on the water, and, scared to death, right? I know he's still scared. I would be, if I'm like, what is wrong with me? I'm getting out of a perfectly good boat and I'm going to take some steps out in the water, and I'm going to stand here, I'm not going to sink. What in the world? But he goes out, man, and there he is. He's standing there with Jesus. And at that moment, the waves got a little bit bigger. The storm comes, right? And I believe there's a reason for that, and he begins to sink, but Jesus being right there, and I think that's the way our life is right now. The storms are all around us, man, and we maybe feel like we're going under and we're just drowning, but we're not, we're not, because Jesus is always right there. And the thing is too, is that, Jesus could have let Peter sink all the way to the bottom. He's like, I'm God, I can let him sink. What is it? I can raise him up in 3 days and bring him back to life. That'd be kind of cool. But you know what he didn't? He showed Peter, and he showed them on the boats that he was right there and he was never out of arm's reach. And he reached down and he pulled him up. So if there's anything or anybody out there right now who's struggling with anything, whatever, Jesus is never too far away. He's never going to let you get too far out to where he can't grab you and pull you up and pull you out of the water and save your butt and set you down. But anyways, that's it for me. Because that's where I'm at, that's where I'm at. It's like, Lord, help me. Don't let me get out of your grasp, please. So I hope that does somebody some good anyways.
That's awesome.
Yep, that is awesome.
And it's true.
What about you, Garrett? Yeah, you guys got quiet.
No,
Hey, man.
I'm contemplating thinking of if I was the one sinking, and when I'm sinking, I have a tendency to swim away. So he can't reach me, but he'll catch me, right? I'm trying to get away. So I want to hold fast to, staying close enough where he's, because God's a gentleman, he'll let you go. He'll let you turn your back on him, but as soon as you turn around, he's right there grabbing you. So I would say just stay strong, guys.
Just want to thank you all, Chris and Gary and Larry. Thank you so much. And Eddie, when Eddie was with us, thank you so much for blessing us. Mike is he's our resident minister, and we always ask him just to, Larry's done preached just a great sermon, and we love that.
They don't let him.
Well, I hope I did okay. You know,
It was great. It was great, and I think, I'm sitting here
I was
listening.
going to say hallelujah.
Yeah, testify. Who doesn't need to be reminded, right? I was sitting there listening intently because it's like, you nailed it, Larry. And we've been talking about fear not, and then it's like, I forgot the very words of Jesus, fear not, it is I.
yeah.
And all these waves and stuff are happening, and boy, what a reminder. But Mike's our resident minister, and we always just ask him if he'd kind of do the official closeout with the word of scripture. And Mike, what you got for us, buddy?
Okay. Today, I'm going to share with you from Isaiah 43:1, which says, "But now thus says the Lord, he who created you, O Jacob, he who formed you, O Israel, fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name, you are mine."
Outstanding. I
Yeah.
love that.
Amen. Amen.
Awesome.
So, friends, it's been a blessing to have the Fear Not guys with us today. And a shout out to Rod also. Rod, we missed you, buddy, but props to you. And we'll put all the links to the Fear Not ReverbNation and Facebook in our description, the Facebook page. Just want to thank you guys so much for blessing us today. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having us.
And we'll go ahead and close out, guys. But before you all completely leave, if you'll stick around just for one more minute, okay? And we'll do the sign off. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Appreciate everybody.
So beautiful.